Professor Utonium never mentioned the gaming console hidden beneath stacks of research in his basement. When the girls discovered it one rainy afternoon, Buttercup insisted they try it despite Bubbles' apprehension. The screen flickered with only one game installed, Blossom.exe. As the title screen loaded, Blossom felt an inexplicable pull toward the pixelated version of herself. That night, neighbors reported seeing pink flashes from the Utonium residence. By morning, Townsville faced its most methodical destruction ever. Buttercup and Bubbles found their sister hovering above the city, eyes vacant, movements mechanical, calculating each strike with mathematical precision. The professor's notes, discovered too late, revealed the console was an abandoned experiment, designed to enhance Blossom's analytical abilities, but corrupted by a foreign code that originated from somewhere beyond Townsville, perhaps beyond our world. The farmhouse stood eerily quiet. No Muriel humming in the kitchen. No Eustace grumbling about the newspaper. Just Courage, alone with an old video camera he'd found in the attic. Something compelled him to record. "This is my goodbye," he whimpered, documenting the empty rooms, the abandoned rocking chair, the hammer left mid-repair on the floor. Each room felt colder than the last. Courage explained through tears how he woke to find them gone. No note, no signs of struggle, just absence. As his paws trembled around the camera's viewfinder, he failed to notice the shifting shadows behind him. The footage ends with Courage staring directly into the lens, ears perking up at something off-screen. A whisper, not in English, not in any language spoken for millennia, crawls across the audio. Viewers who enhance the final frames report seeing a familiar silhouette in the doorway, but not quite human, not quite anything recognizable. The Jawbreaker machine gleamed under the street lamp, no coin slot, no lock, standing mysteriously at the cul-de-sac's edge. After years of schemes, the Eds finally had unlimited access to their sugary obsession. Ed went first, his childlike enthusiasm undiminished as he popped a cherry-red steel. His expression shifted instantly.
Nice riding, Mr. Caterpillar!
A slow, unnatural smile spreading. "It tastes like home," he mumbled, voice deeper than before. Double D analyzed his purple Jawbreaker skeptically before trying it. Within seconds, his posture straightened, vocabulary simplified, scientific curiosity fading to blank
You can lick a cow! A
Eddie
compliment, I'm
hesitated,
sure. Sorry to
watching his
say,
friends
I'm on my
transform. The blue Jawbreaker felt heavy in his palm. With each candy consumed, the boys lost pieces of themselves, memories, fears, desires, replaced by hollow conformity.
Calic looks so
By
defined
morning,
today, Jimmy!
3 identical
Ruth has much
figures
admiration for
walked the
he
cul-de-sac
passed away!
indistinguishable from each other.
He's keeping
Their
you from
distinct personalities dissolved completely in the perfect, endless sweetness. Finn never intended to explore the Ice King's private chambers, but a snowstorm trapped him inside the frozen fortress. In a hidden room lined with crystalline shelves, he discovered hundreds of unlabeled VHS tapes. The first showed Simon in his early madness, crown glinting as he forcibly married a terrified slime princess. Each subsequent tape featured different princesses, some Finn recognized, others from kingdoms long destroyed. The ceremonies grew increasingly elaborate and disturbing, the Ice King's delusions deepening with each ritual. In the final tape, dated just days earlier, Princess Bubblegum stared directly into the camera, mouth-forming words that chilled Finn more than the Arctic air. "He's coming for you next." When Finn confronted the Ice King, the old wizard had no memory of making the tapes, but a wedding dress sized perfectly for Finn hung in the closet, freshly prepared. The Omnitrix malfunction began with a slight discoloration around Ben's wrist, pale green veins spreading up his arm during transformations. Gwen noticed first, but Ben dismissed her concerns. The watch had glitched before. After battling a new crystalline alien, Ben attempted to return to human form, but remained suspended between transformations. His left arm maintained Heat Blast's molten properties, while his right leg crystallized like Diamond Head. By nightfall, 13 different alien DNA signatures competed within his cellular structure. Grandpa Max contacted Azimuth desperately, but the transmission cut short. As days passed, Ben's human memories faded, childhood recollections replaced by fragments of alien worlds he'd never visited. His voice became a chorus of different species, thoughts fragmented across multiple consciousnesses. The final entry in Gwen's diary details how Ben looked at his reflection without recognition before walking into the desert night, murmuring names of planets that don't exist in any astronomical database. SpongeBob woke to darkness. Bikini Bottom's artificial sun had vanished, leaving the underwater city in perpetual night. His pineapple home felt different, heavier, the walls pulsing slightly as if breathing. Outside, familiar paths seemed elongated, distorted. The first neighbor he encountered was Patrick, standing motionless in his yard, eyes completely black, mouth slightly open but not releasing bubbles. Patrick, SpongeBob approached, noticing something wrong with the water's resistance. It felt thicker, almost solid. At the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs sat counting money that crumbled to dust in his claws. Squidward's clarinet produced notes that bent physically through the water. Most disturbing was the collective silence. No one spoke, no one breathed. SpongeBob realized with mounting horror that underwater creatures shouldn't need to breathe at all. The question emerged, had they always been breathing, or had he just noticed? And if they breathed underwater, where exactly was Bikini Bottom located? Chucky Finster couldn't sleep. The shadows in Tommy's house stretched differently at night, especially around the empty crib in the nursery. Stu and Dee Dee Pickles maintained the room perfectly. Toys arranged, mobiles spinning, blankets folded, despite the crib's perpetual emptiness. Only Chucky saw the small shadow that followed them during playtime, a formless shape with Tommy's distinctive silhouette. The babies played normally, while Angelica watched with unusual silence, her eyes tracking the shadow's movements. During nap time, Chucky heard whispers from the crib, soft, infant babbling that stopped whenever adults entered. When he finally gathered courage to ask Angelica about Tommy, she smiled strangely. He's always been here. You just don't remember right. That night, Chucky's father found him screaming about tiny handprints appearing on the nursery window, from the inside, pressing outward, too small to belong to anyone living in the Pickles household. The boarding house always had rules. No playing ball in the hallways, no pets except Abner, and never enter the basement without Grandpa Phil. Arnold respected these boundaries until a missing baseball rolled beneath the basement door. The heavy door, usually locked, swung open at his touch. Descending the creaking stairs, Arnold discovered not storage space, but a sterile laboratory. Specimen jars lined the walls, each containing preserved tissue samples labeled with familiar names: Mr. Yun, Mr. Potts, Oscar. Notebooks detailed integration experiments and behavioral modifications dating back decades. Most disturbing was a map marking where Grandpa had collected subjects nationwide, with the boarding house as the central hub. When Grandpa found him, the old man's expression wasn't anger, but relief. "I wondered when you'd be ready to learn the family business." The tools laid out on the examination table seemed sized perfectly for Arnold's hands, as if they'd been waiting for him all along. Danny Fenton's ghost sense activated during a routine patrol, guiding him to an abandoned broadcast station. Phasing through the walls, he discovered a room filled with analog equipment, televisions, radios, telephones, all running without power sources. As he approached the central console, a frequency surge pulled him halfway between ghost and human form, trapping him in the transformation. The room sealed itself, space distorting until the exit disappeared completely. For what felt like days, Danny remained alone, while static-filled screens showed fragmented images of his family searching for him. Their voices played backwards through crackling speakers, becoming increasingly distorted until unrecognizable. The camera recording this lost episode reportedly malfunctioned constantly, the footage jittering unnaturally, timestamp numbers counting backward. According to production notes, the animation team experienced equipment failures whenever they attempted to complete the episode, with storyboards mysteriously altering between revisions to show Danny progressively erasing himself from his own memories. The transmission hijacked every screen in the city simultaneously. Emergency broadcasts, personal devices, electronic billboards, all displaying the same footage from Mars. Dib recognized Zim's unmistakable silhouette against the red landscape, the alien invader finally revealing himself publicly. Authorities dismissed the broadcast as an elaborate hoax, while citizens gathered in mesmerized crowds. Zim's message contained no threats or demands, just a continuous, subtle tone underlying his monologue about Earth's impending participation. Within hours, hospital emergency rooms reported patients experiencing identical symptoms, nosebleeds, disorientation, and repetitive sketching of non-Euclidean structures. Dib, immune thanks to his specialized equipment, documented the city's gradual descent into synchronous behavior, people marching in geometric patterns through streets, constructing unexplainable devices from household items. The broadcast's final moment shows Zim turning directly toward viewers, voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "You already hear me inside your mind, don't you?" The conversion has already begun. The episode begins typically, bright colors, familiar Springfield locations, until the family's airplane trip, when turbulence sends Bart through a damaged cabin window. What follows abandons the show's animation style for something more deliberate and clinical. No music plays as the remaining Simpsons return to their empty home. The camera lingers uncomfortably on each character's face, their expressions unnaturally still, save for occasional eye blinks. Days turn to weeks in jarring time lapses. Homer stops going to work. Lisa's saxophone collects dust. Maggie's pacifier falls unused to the floor. Marge stands before Bart's untouched bedroom for hours. Their movements grow sluggish, colors desaturating gradually until the family appears jaundiced, sickly. Most disturbing are the timestamps in each scene's corner, advancing months while the family's deterioration accelerates. Hair falling out, clothes unchanged, food rotting on dinner plates. The final scene shows all four sitting silently on their couch, a family portrait with Bart now hanging crookedly on the wall behind them. Brian's
She's all like,
block
"Oh, there's
led
all
him
these
to
guys having
explore
sex
the
with me for
Griffin
money," and
house,
I'm all like,
searching
"Oh, you
for
deserve better," and
inspiration
then I
in
died.
forgotten corners.
Well, sex is overrated.
Behind
Stay
Stewie's bookshelf, he discovered a hidden panel leading to a cramped, windowless space, wallpapered with surveillance photos of Lois. The images spanned decades: teenage Lois, college Lois, pregnant Lois, alongside photos impossible for Stewie to have taken. Lois as a child, Lois in locations she'd never visited. Most disturbing were the projections, meticulously altered photos showing future scenarios. Lois gray-haired, Lois hospitalized, Lois in a funeral casket. In the room's center stood a mannequin wearing Lois's clothing, surrounded by notebooks filled with calculations and biological formulas beyond any infant's comprehension. When Brian confronted Stewie, the baby responded with uncharacteristic serenity. "Everyone assumes my matricidal tendencies are about independence, Brian." The truth is much simpler. I've seen how her story ends, and I'm merely facilitating the inevitable. Hank discovered the unlabeled VHS tape while clearing his father's belongings after Cotton's death. The recording showed Cotton alone in a sparse room, addressing the camera with uncharacteristic sobriety. "The military records are all lies," he began, detailing operations in countries never officially entered by American forces. Cotton described experimental weapons testing on civilians, villages systematically erased from maps, and commanding officers who disappeared after questioning orders. As the confession continued, Hank noticed movement in the video's background, a bound figure occasionally shifting behind Cotton's chair, face obscured, but clearly wearing an Imperial Japanese Army uniform. Cotton never acknowledged this presence, even when the figure's struggles intensified during descriptions of particularly brutal encounters. The video abruptly cuts to Cotton standing over the now still figure, whispering, "They told us we were winning by doing this." Animation studios deny creating this episode, though 3 storyboard artists reportedly quit after completing its initial layout, with one still undergoing psychiatric treatment. Bob Belcher's financial struggles led him to purchase restaurant equipment at a suspiciously low price from a police auction. The ancient meat grinder, manufactured by a company with no historical record, possessed unusual details, symbols etched into the metal, a hand crank that turned counterclockwise, and a persistent metallic smell despite thorough cleaning. Bob installed it after hours, noticing its perfect fit in a corner of the kitchen he'd never properly utilized before. That night, the family woke to mechanical sounds from the restaurant below. Through the apartment floor vent, Linda heard the distinct sound of the grinder operating, rhythmic cranking followed by wet, heavy thuds. By morning, perfectly formed burger patties filled the refrigerator, meat with a marbled texture Bob couldn't identify, and a rich aroma that drew unprecedented crowds to the restaurant. As customers raved about the unique flavor, Bob discovered the grinder operating nightly despite remaining unplugged. More disturbing were the neighborhood reports of missing pets, then missing people, coinciding precisely with each new batch of mysteriously appearing meat. Stan Smith always maintained that the CIA's basement levels were off-limits conversational topics at home. After a particularly intense night terror, where Stan screamed about neural compliance, Steve snuck into his father's home office and discovered a hidden journal. The entries, written in increasingly erratic handwriting, detailed Stan's growing awareness of behavioral programming implemented during his CIA training. Specific colors, sounds, and phrases triggered preset responses, explaining his extreme reactions to seemingly innocuous situations. The journal ended with a desperate plan to crash the system through deliberate exposure to conflicting triggers. When confronted, Stan responded with mechanical calm. "I appreciate your concern, son, but there's nothing wrong with Daddy's brain function operations systems." That evening, Roger made a seemingly harmless alien joke during dinner. Stan froze mid-sentence, eyes rapidly shifting colors before he methodically reached for his service weapon and eliminated the alien threat with perfect emotionless precision, exactly as his programming intended. The episode begins with standard Bugs Bunny animation, fluid movements, vibrant colors, as he outsmarts Elmer Fudd yet again. Upon returning to his rabbit hole, Bugs notices something wrong with his mirror. His reflection moves with subtle delays, smiling fractionally longer, blinking at different intervals. Initially playing it for laughs, Bugs performs increasingly complex movements to catch the discrepancy. The reflection eventually stops mimicking him altogether, watching with calculated interest as Bugs panics. When Bugs smashes the mirror, the glass remains intact while fracturing reality instead, the animation style splitting into disjointed segments. The reflection steps through the dimensional tear, its movement choppy, reminiscent of early stop motion. As the original Bugs backs away, his doppelganger speaks with a voice just slightly distorted. "I've watched you entertain them for decades. Now it's my turn outside." The episode concludes with the reflection Bugs emerging from a rabbit hole into bright sunshine, adjusting its gloves with unnerving precision before addressing the audience with unfamiliar malice. "What's up, Doc? Ready for something new?" The Warner siblings' characteristic chaos opened the episode normally, until Yakko noticed Dot hadn't spoken all morning. Medical examinations yielded no physical explanation. Dot simply stared ahead, occasionally writing notes about the recording she needed everyone to hear. Wakko discovered an unlabeled audio cassette in their water tower home, dated decades before their cartoon's creation. When played, the tape contained only static, except to Dot, who became increasingly agitated, insisting they listen properly. Animation historians note this episode's distinct tonal shift, with backgrounds becoming progressively darker and character movements more hesitant. In the final act, Yakko and Wakko enhance the recording through the Warner Brothers sound department, revealing a child's voice, presumably Dot's, screaming about being trapped within burning film canisters. Studio records indicate a fire destroyed early Warner animation archives in 1933, with rumors of experimental sound technology being tested that same day. The episode concludes with Dot regaining speech, though speaking exclusively in a 1930s accent and referring to events no one else remembers. Buster Bunny noticed it first, a single frame where Bab's eyes were misaligned. Soon, animation errors multiplied throughout Acme Acres, color palettes shifting mid-scene, characters temporarily missing limbs, backgrounds repeating incorrectly. Initially playing these glitches for comedy, the Toons grew concerned when Plucky Duck's bill detached completely, floating independently while still delivering his lines. Attempting to visit the Warner Brothers' animator for repairs, the characters discovered the studio completely empty, storyboards showing their world being systematically deleted. Hampton Pig, analyzing code visible at the edges of their reality, identified the corruption as a deliberate virus rather than animation mistakes. The episode's final sequence shows the characters desperately attempting to repair themselves. Montana Max, cutting and pasting features from background characters, Shirley the Loon meditating until her outline stabilizes. Their efforts prove futile as Acme Acres disintegrates into wireframes and color tests. The last shot reveals their world as merely one folder being dragged to a digital trash bin, with hundreds of identical folders, other cartoon universes, queued for deletion. The episode opens with unexplained audio distortion, dialogue audible but warped, as if broadcast through damaged equipment. Freakazoid battles a forgettable villain while the sound issues worsen, electronic interference punctuating every joke. By the second act, Freakazoid notices the audio problems, breaking the fourth wall to apologize to viewers. His typically manic personality subdues as the distortions intensify, eventually affecting his movement, limbs jerking unnaturally, facial expressions freezing mid-change. Consulting his digital origin within the internet, Freakazoid discovers corrupted code spreading through his consciousness. His humor gradually fades, jokes abandoned for increasingly urgent repetitions of the word "wake up." The animation quality deteriorates alongside his personality, colors dulling to grayscale, as Freakazoid addresses the audience with unsettling directness. This transmission is contaminated. Your reception continues because you believe you're watching entertainment. The signal originates elsewhere. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Network executives reportedly demanded multiple re-edits, though test audiences consistently reported headaches and electronic device malfunctions during screenings, regardless of which version they viewed. Presented as recovered security footage, the episode documents psychiatric interviews with Batman following his apprehension during a violent episode in downtown Gotham. The clinical setting strips Batman of his mythic quality: cape removed, utility belt confiscated, referred to consistently as Patient Wayne. A methodical doctor guides Batman through his vigilante history, gently suggesting his rogues gallery represents psychological projections rather than actual individuals. Security footage shows no Batcave beneath Wayne Manor, only a basement filled with newspaper clippings and homemade equipment. As sessions progress, Batman's certainty wavers. He experiences breakthrough moments, recognizing Alfred as an enabling personality in his delusion rather than an actual butler. The Doctor gradually introduces Bruce to other, costumed personalities receiving treatment: a mild-mannered botanist with no green skin, a former district attorney with minimal scarring, a timid psychiatrist with blonde hair. The final scene reveals Batman fully sedated in a straitjacket, doctors discussing his improved acceptance of reality, while the camera pulls back to show his cell door, labeled not with Wayne, but Unknown Subject 27.